We try to keep an eye on the news to keep you abreast of current legislation, some that we agree with, some that we disagree with, and, well, we want to bring the facts to you accurately so that you can make up your mind as well. Senator Tommy Morrison is involved in a couple of interesting pieces of legislation in the news this week. One of them allowing clear UV window films on vehicles, new technology out there which isn't accounted for in our current law, and another relating to motorcycle riders and helmets, and we wanted to bring him in on both of those subjects, starting with the helmets because of the public hearing. I understand it took place yesterday. Senator Morrison, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Good afternoon, Huffley, Travis. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your show.
Thank you so much, and a happy Friday to you. Every day's Friday. So
yes, happy Friday. Let's have a good day.
Absolutely. So I was on the air yesterday. Didn't get a chance to hear or see much from the public hearing. How did things go?
Well, first off, I just want to thank everyone who came out to testify on the bill, and whether they were for it or against it, it was very important to hear all their concerns or their viewpoint regarding the bill. And I also really appreciate the victims who had the courage to come out and tell their story. One of them actually was, I just met out in the legislature, and he just approached me. I really don't know him, and he basically said, I want to tell my story and how he believes a helmet saved his life. So I encouraged him. I told him it was up to him to come in there. But for the most part,
tell me a little bit about his story, if you could sum it up real quick.
Well, he had an incident in the mainland, and it was just one of those spontaneous things. He wasn't thinking about getting on his bike or his motorcycle, and in a nutshell, he was really traveling at very low speeds, 25, 30 miles an hour, when a vehicle came on and hit him. He said he flew about 30, 40 feet. And, of course, according to him, or according to the medics, they were reporting in that he was dead. And he was wearing a helmet, but he did have so much to say, and it was so emotional what he was trying to share. But for the most part, he was just saying he believed in the helmet. It helped him to minimize that impact to his head. I mean, he had many damages throughout his body. It was completely burned on one side of his body, I believe, as well. He had some of the scars to prove that. And basically, Travis, he was just sharing that, he believes in the helmet, and that's what happened to him, and he's grateful that he's alive, and he wanted to encourage everybody there that, Bill 87, or basically a helmet, is good for you, good for Guam.
Now, did this happen in a state where wearing a helmet was mandatory?
I believe it's Colorado. I'm not sure. Got to verify that. I know maybe one of 20 states. Mission can verify that.
Oh, okay.
But for the most part, everyone was respectful of one another during the hearing. And,
good.
And everyone had a chance to voice their opinions, and I appreciate and thank everyone for being very respectful for one another. It was very civil, and we heard everybody's viewpoint.
Well, it sounds good. So how does how do you factor in and how do you weigh the testimony that is offered? I would imagine it would be a difficult process when people are vehemently for or against something that you proposed in legislation.
I want to make it clear. Bill 87, I made it clear last night, it's not an attack in the motorcycle community, and you know as well as I do, Travis, the motorcycle community has contributed so much to our island in many ways, and I really wanted to make it clear that my intention is about motorcycle safety. And, the main arguments last night was on the choice and freedom of choice. Let us decide. I wanted to make sure that we let them know that we did a systematic research, meaning we looked at other places and what they were doing in regards to motorcycle safety, specifically helmet laws, and we also looked at our situation here, our laws, our data, etc. And I wanted to also take them as far back as 47 years ago with the 8th legislature that enacted our first helmet legislation. So it's really nothing new to Guam. We did have a helmet law, and I wanted to share with them that the 8th legislature, in their good intentions, felt that we should have mandatory helmets law. It held for about 31 years. Keep in mind, we know about 47 years ago our roads didn't have these. We didn't have these three-way lanes. We didn't have them of poles of concrete poles 100 feet from apart down the street, and it was clear they had some foresight to put some preventive measures in place, even though we didn't have that many motorcycles on the streets at that time. Of course, it was repealed in the 24th legislature, and senators at that time were convinced that helmet laws were not a conclusive factor in reducing accidents. We couldn't locate at this time any numbers to support or that helped them assist that decision as well. And also there was federal funding at that time attached to it that no longer restricted jurisdictions that were absent mandatory helmet laws. So those were the two, I believe, factors in why it was repealed. Now, here we are today. I'm doing my best to put out as much research to or data, and I know we definitely have to look what's happening here on Guam. I did state clearly that we have alarming numbers and that we need to address. I also stated that as a lawmaker in my capacity, you just can't ignore this, or I wouldn't be doing my job. I would at least have to find a way to see how we could put these numbers on the table, some of the ideas, some of the solutions that we could address as far as this mandatory helmet law to prevent these massive injuries or fatalities. And that's where I'm at today. I did present as much as I can. I worked with the Guam Police Department and get as much accurate data to share with them. And of course, sometimes, regardless of that, people believe that no matter what, we still want our choice. Now,
right, and for example, the gentleman that shared his story, if he was indeed from the state of Colorado and was wearing his helmet, then that would have been his choice, because Colorado doesn't have a helmet law.
Right.
It's only for riders that are 18 years and below.
Right. Right.
So
I know. Maybe it's not one of the 20 states, I guess. So you're right.
So in the interest of safety, did any of the, for example, riders bring to you something that we chatted about on the program, their interest in perhaps stepping up the examination for motorcycle riders? I mean, if you are indeed interested in promoting cyclist safety, they pointed out that if you are in the military, there's actually a much more rigorous examination that is required of riders.
Yes, and Travis, I commended them for that and how they have a lot of respect for the federal requirements, federal laws. They know exactly what to wear. I mean, they frequent the military installations in Guam, and they know exactly what to wear. And I was making it clear, at the minimum, Bill 87 is just asking for a helmet. I want to go down the list of what the federal government requires, but it's a list, a long list. And I commended them for the respect for the federal or military installations and the requirements. So, yes, they brought up motorcycle safety issues and better training, better examinations. And one individual also pointed out that that more training, more examinations will help minimize that. I agree.
And probably greater enforcement of drunk driving.
And there's many factors that take place with motorcycle incidents out there, and an individual pointed out really well that a lot of it's not their fault. I agree too. And yes, I'm not sure if our training maybe will provide more awareness on where you're at, but I made it clear. I said, you can have all the training in the world, but we do have reckless drivers. You don't have the best roadways out there. The point I'm trying to make is you will have great training if we implement something like that. The fact remains that an accident can occur, and it may not be your fault, but based on the data that we have, helmets can reduce minimize the impact by 40% as far as brain injury, up to 69% reduce of major injuries. So I even stated, Travis, last night, I said, even if the CDC reports or National Highway reports, safety reports are way off, even by 40%, what if someone told you basically you had a 20% chance out there, we wanted to make sure, as lawmakers, that we wanted to ensure that we try to prevent any massive injuries for yourself from not being your fault.
Yeah, understood. But in other areas where we know there is conclusive proof, I don't think anyone was there to argue that helmets could save lives, and that helmets ought to be encouraged, particularly among younger riders and even among older riders, in the same way that we encourage people not to smoke. We encourage people not to drink to excess, because if you do, statistically, you will shorten the years of your life.
Right.
And yet we still allow those activities.
Right. And we try to address things as we go along in life, and we just can't fix everything, but some things are right in front of your face that you just, as in my capacity, you just either blind yourself on it and be an irresponsible lawmaker, or you try to put the data together, put it out there, and see what our community thinks, and that's what I'm doing.
Okay. It sounds to me, at least from what I'm getting from you now, that you are still leaning towards supporting the mandatory helmets. Would I be correct in that assessment? It's
very hard, Travis, to compromise safety, and I said I have an open mind. I'll work with my colleagues last night and see where we can. But it's so hard to compromise. They even talked about age requirements and all that, and I said, I believe 19 or even 21 years old, your head's still the same. It could crack. Now, I'm open to seeing what we can do as far as training, examinations, and seeing how we can incorporate that. And the thing is do we compromise safety? I wanted to share them, or do we just avoid what this data is going and keep this trend going out there in the streets?
And I hear exactly where you're coming from, and I think you've stated your case clearly and your concern. Would you mind taking a call from one of our listeners?
Sure. If you don't mind, I also want to clear up one of the main arguments last night was regarding our regarding freedom of choice, and if I have time to do that.
Oh, absolutely. Tell you what, it's about 3:27 in the afternoon. How about we take this question from a caller first, and then on the other side of the news, I want to make room for you to talk about your thoughts on personal freedom.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. And we've got John joining us first before we hit the news. Good afternoon, John.
Hi, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Senator. I actually didn't really have a question for Senator Morrison. I just wanted to weigh in on the discussion, and I'm not really privy to the public hearing and all the things that went on in that, but I think it's a good issue for him to get behind because, like he stated, safety, it's really difficult to compromise on safety. And the other issue is that let's face the facts. Motorcycles that are being produced now, and as they have been in the past, are very powerful machines. And when you're out on the roads, Guam, our traffic is not getting any lighter. and we have a lot of inexperienced drivers on the roads and irresponsible drivers on the roads, unfortunately. I mean, and that's basically due to the fact there's a lot of people on the roads that really haven't driven. They don't have a lot of experience. For example, folks that have come here from the FSM and other places, you know, they're just they just don't get it sometimes. It's a big, a steep learning curve there. But another thing that's worth mentioning is the fact that, I don't know, you may want to, along the lines of freedom of choice, that's great. If somebody doesn't want to wear a helmet, let's make sure if they do get into an accident, their medical care and all that comes along with that does not end up being the responsibility of the community at large, basically other taxpayers. If somebody has, you know, say 10 years of experience on the road with a motorcycle, you know, some sort of a graduating scale could be implemented where then they could then, you know, be able to ride without a helmet, and as long as they have a good, solid insurance policy, health insurance policy, that has like contingencies for, you know, catastrophic stuff with, you know, automobile accidents or whatever, head trauma, then hey, you know, what can you do? But it's a tough issue. I mean, I was around in New York when there was a big, huge campaign back in like the 70s, 80s, whatever, the helmet laws suck. They had massive rallies at the state capitol, and I don't really think that it changed much in the final analysis. But
well, I tell you, John, I'm gonna have to cut you just a little bit short, just because we're running a little bit of time. But I appreciate you jumping in. I do want you to listen to this though before you dump us out of this conversation. In that, really, this issue came to a head across the nation when then Governor of the state of California, Ronald Reagan, stood alone versus any of the other states in defying a then Department of Transportation requirement about tying federal funds to the helmet laws. And he felt that it was one of those issues that should be left to the individual choice of the rider. So we'll talk about that and other issues here in a moment. Senator, thank you very much for joining us.